What is good, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Alrighty, today we are going to be doing a reaction video. I'm going to be doing a couple reaction videos to a couple different top 20, top 30, top 50 hair metal albums, glam metal albums list from different websites that I just type in Google, like top whatever hair metal list, albums list, and we will kind of go in order. And because the reason why I'm doing a couple of these is because I am finishing up my top 50 hair metal albums of all time, or not of all time, just of probably like 1983 to 1994, 1995, within that range. So nothing on the newer side, if you will. But yeah, so I'm just looking. I got mine pretty much all done with a few different a few spaces that could be interchangeable. But I'm just curious and seeing what other people really had because I never really looked at these lists because I always just went and bought stuff and just found stuff on my own and never really looked at lists and been like, oh, I need to check this album out because everyone says that this is number one or number two or number three. No, whatever I found on YouTube in my high school days and just going through all, like, I looked at everything that I could and buy physically when I was a teenager and up until now of the hair metal scene up until like the early 90s basically, and that is how I got my collection. That is how I got, you know, all the knowledge basically that I have, which isn't that much compared to a lot of other people. So, but definitely, guys, let us jump in here now to we are going to be doing VCRs, classic rock and culture, one of their top what is it, top 30, top 30 glam metal albums. So let me share the screen here and we will get started.
Hey, this is Michael Kelly Smith from Brittany Fox. You're watching the Crash Course Metal Show. Rock on.
All right, so here we are, top 30, and number 30 is going to be Quiet Riot's Metal Health 1983. I'm not the biggest fan of Quiet Riot to begin with, or this album, but I do understand and appreciate that this was the album that kind of helped break metal into the mainstream and make it help it become a serious thing in the eyes of like the music industry and such like that. I don't ever need to hear "Come On Feel the Noise" ever again. That song, I'm with Kevin DeBro. I got tired of that song when I was like 13 or 14. Don't need to hear it again. It gets way overplayed on the radio around here. Horrible. But like the title track's good. Slick Black Cadillac is okay. But I do like Love's a Bitch. That's a pretty good song. That's like one of my favorites and like one of the only songs I really remember off of this album. So I mean, but I get why someone would put this on their top 30. I get it, but it's not going to be on my top 50. All right. Give me the self-titled Quiet Riot from '88 with Paul Sorrentino on it. I'll take that album over a lot of other Quiet Riot albums, to be honest with you. All right, so number 29, we got White Lion's second album here with Pride from 1987. I'm not the biggest White Lion guy. Now I have like all their stuff, but it's a band that I just do not visit that much, but I do like Pride. It's a good album. I probably have most of that album on the iPod, maybe minus one song or maybe two, but it's a solid album. I like it, but is it gonna make? Would it make my top 30? Probably not. And I'm not gonna keep. There's probably a chance that a lot of these albums aren't gonna make my top 50, just because like from some of my criteria for me is albums that I visit the most throughout my life. And not that if they were impactful or sold platinum or gold, because to me, all because a album went platinum doesn't mean that it's better than another band's album that got no promotion or just didn't sell well. I mean, there's plenty of bands that we talk about all the time on this channel and other channels, that are, we don't know how these songs or how these albums didn't get the recognition or the sales compared to some other albums. And it's some of my reasoning is because back in the 80s and early 90s, there were so many great bands. Like, and a cassette or CD was a decent amount of money, for kids, teenagers at the time, and early 20s. people that just couldn't go out and spend you know, spend money on 5 CDs, which that would have been $50 to a kid, and that's a lot of money. Like I could have, like when I was the teenager, I bought a lot of this stuff before the Renaissance, like before this stuff got kind of popular again. For like, I bought like a couple CDs. I remember I bought like Boys in Heat, Britney Fox. I bought Wild Side, Under the Influence. I bought all that stuff, out of print stuff, cheap, like less than $5. And now, good luck finding it for less than $25. And it's it's so that harkens back to what I was saying. Like these kids, they could only buy one album every couple weeks or a month or so. So like that's why some of these bands did get the short end of the stick, because everyone just can't go out and buy 10 albums every week, and it just sucks because there was plenty of stuff that just did not get known about because, or just sell because of mainly that. Well, that is a reason, I would say. So, but White Lion Pride, like I don't ever need to hear uh, when the children cry again. I mean, I do like the messaging in it, like the content, like the subject matter in that song. But man, that's not a ballad. I don't even know if it's on the iPod, to be honest with you. I probably because I probably skip it all the time, and I just don't. I don't need to hear it more times than not. So yeah. All right. So number 28 here, we got Dawkins, Tooth and Nail. Surprisingly, actually, like I don't know if I. It's a good album, a very good album. I'm not talking crap on the album at all, but to me, I think where Dawkins excels as a band, songwriting, musically, George Lynch excels after this album. You could tell the growth in the band after this album, like because you obviously had the first album, Breaking the Chains, and Tooth and Nail here, which are good albums. But you could tell they totally made a step forward in growth, their sound, and everything on Under Lock and Key, and certainly for Back for the Attack, 100%. So to me, I would choose either Lock and Key or Back for the Attack way before Tooth and Nail or Breaking the Chains on my top 30 list. So, but I mean, like I said, there's great songs. You know, uh, Bullets to Spare is really good on this album. Heaven Comes Down is really good. Now, this is, you could argue, the first power ballad in the scene that made it big, and kind of started the people took power ballads seriously, starting to take power ballads seriously and thinking, oh yeah, this could actually be a good selling point, but also too, the other single on here was Into the Fire, which it's okay, but certainly a song, in my opinion, that's weaker than a lot of the other Dawkins singles. And yeah, it's just like you can certainly tell from the first two albums to their last two albums, Dawkins, like which ones are just more superior, And but yeah, I mean, I I agree with having Dawkins on the list, but I'm not gonna go for that album per se. All right, so 27 we got here in 1989, Dangerous Toys with their self-titled. A good album, but this album would not make my top 30. I really prefer Hellacious Acres from Dangerous Toys from 91. I really like that album a whole lot. Just I think you got the best of both worlds with Dangerous Toys on that album. You got the more melodic stuff, and then you also got a little bit heavier stuff, kind of like where they started venturing onto Pissed, their third album. But this here, there's no true ballad, which is fine on this self-titled debut, because like Best of Friends, the ballad on Hellish Shaker is just okay, nothing crazy. But I mean, I do really like Queen of the Nile on here. That's very melodic in spots, really good. I think the final track is That Dog. That's a pretty cool song. I obviously Tease and Please is a good single. All right, moving on here. 26, Michael Monroe, Not Faking It. So I do not have any Michael Monroe stuff or Hanoi Rock stuff because throughout my whole life, I can never find that shit physically on CD whenever I go to any of my CD or like record shops, used or new stuff. Like I could never find anything of this. And I just never really came across them on YouTube. And like I don't really use Spotify or anything like that. So like just their stuff never really got in my world. So I have no opinion on this album. So there you go, 26, Michael Monroe. All right, number 25, Kiss, Lick It Up from 1983. Are we classing this as a hair metal album now? Like, I don't know.
Hell no, to the no, no, no.
Good album, but I don't know. I would certainly, you could argue, Animalize is a little bit more hair metally, maybe. But honestly, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Their hair metal album is probably Crazy Nights. That album is probably, or even Hot in the Shade, you could argue, is like their hair metal album. So, and Revenge is more of a hard rock type deal. You could argue that's a glam hair metal album as well, but I just don't care for that album that much. I think that's way overrated. So, but as far as Lick It Up, though, good album. I'm happy. I like it, but I Kiss does not make any other albums. Do not make a top 50 album for me list. Yeah. So maybe even if we're just talking in general, not even just hair metal. So yeah, I mean, we can get that into that another time. But yeah, Lick It Up, good though. Classic Vinnie Vincent. I mean, I love his solo stuff. In particular, his debut. All System Go is pretty weak for me. So, but no, All Hell's Breaking Loose, like, good, very good song. Obviously, the title track, Lick It Up. Even though when that comes on, it is overplayed. But when that comes on, it is kind of like one of those nothing but a good time type songs where it's like, okay, I mean, it can still put you in a good mood. Not that I'm seeking out to play it on my iPod or anything. But like when it does come on, I won't give anybody shit. It's cool. It's way better. It's way better than Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. Oh my god! Please do not ever mention that song in my presence. I had enough of that song when I was 8 years old, and I said we can't be playing that ever again. I'm so tired of it. So yeah, I mean that is what it is right there for Lick It Up. You know, I don't know if it's hair metal, guys. I don't know if that album is hair metal. All right, number 24 here. We got the debut 1988 L.A. Guns. Uh, this is one of the first, along with Rocksgang, along with Guns N' Roses, along with Faster Pussycat, the prototypical sleaze sound, the beginning of sleaze. And I appreciate it, but I prefer Cocked and Loaded. Uh, if I'm going to be doing a top 50, Cocked and Loaded would be there before the debut. Electric Gypsy, great single. Down in the City, pretty cool. There's a couple other ones on here, like Sex Action's another one, another single that was pretty good. It has a nice little groove to it. One More Reason, yeah, it's okay. No Mercy, I think, yeah, you lead off the album. That's the opening track. Pretty good. I mean, hits you right in the face. You know what you're getting into. But I mean, it's solid stuff. It is what it is. It's just this album. LA Guns deserves to be on a top 50 hair metal list, but I'm not going to take the debut. I would certainly say Cocked and Loaded or even Hollywood Vampires, to be completely honest with you. All right. Wasp 23 with their debut. Now, here we go again. Is this hair metal? Great album, but is it hair metal? I don't know. If we are talking hair metal, let's swap this out and put in Inside the Electric Circus from Wasp, '86. I feel like I even feel like Last Command isn't hair metal. Like you're getting a little closer than compared to this album, but it's still just hard rock traditional metal because you're hitting a lot of different pies here, and Wasp goes right in the middle with a lot of intersecting pieces, that just connects it. But no, I had the reissue of this album on CD, and then I do have the vinyl version. But obviously, the original release does not have "I Fuck Like a Beast" on it, which my CD reissue does. And I grew up with the reissue, so I always put that song in with this album, even though technically that's not correct. But I mean, you still have great songs on here. You got Love Machine. I Want to Be Somebody. I will say it was probably the cleanest song on this album, so that's why they went with it as a single and a music video. but to me, I think it's not one of the strongest songs on the album. Hellions cool. School Days is cool. I remember being in high school when I first bought The Last Command and the debut here. Those were my first two Wasps albums, I believe. And I was like, "Oh God, this song is so cool!" It's just because it's me in school, and I'm like, "Fuck this," that type of deal. So, but yeah, definitely a good album. But I don't know, is it hair metal, guys? All right, moving on here. 22 Badlands, self title from '89. Now, yes, Badlands did come out early enough to really get noticed. And obviously Jakey Lee coming from Ozzy, Eric Singer, drummer, who eventually went on to Kiss. Yes, and Ray Gillen also, the vocalist, had a very controversial shit going on with AIDS and spreading it around, and and that's why you won't ever see probably a reissue of these two albums of Badlands, and it's a shame just based on that. But I mean, it's a very weird subject, touchy subject. It's like just a shitty thing to do, and it's just, but yeah, we could talk about that another time as well. But as far as this album goes, I think I actually prefer Voodoo Highway, guys. I think I prefer that album over the debut. I feel like I visit that album a lot more than the debut. But I mean, the debu's great. You had the single "Dreams in the Dark," amazing song. High Wire, one of the one of the strongest opening riffs and songs to lead it to lead off an album. Great stuff. Just your blues rock type deal. And man, I just it's good stuff. It is good stuff, but I just don't visit it as much. And but it certainly does need to be talked about more, I would say. Just Badlands in general. All right, number 21, The Caught with Sonic Temple. Are we considering Caught a hair metal band, guys? I mean, sure, they were there in the early '80s, and if you've seen their catalog all the way up through the early '90s, they go through different things. They're a little bit like Queensryche in a sense, because Queensryche had that like goth, that traditional metal feel in the first couple albums. And then they move kind of like to a traditional metal feel, and then they move to a progressive type deal, and then they start hitting a little bit of mainstream stuff, and then they go back to like a progressive feel, and all within a span of like 5, 6 albums. So I kind of see, and that you couldn't really place them anywhere. And I kind of feel that same way with the Cult, more of just a mainstream hard rock band, not necessarily hair metal. And they were kind of there early in that new wave as well. If you listen to their debut album, even first two albums, and I don't know, but this album is good. I'm not gonna deny that this album is good. Sun King, really good song on here. Sweet Soul Sister, one of my favorites on here as well. Those two are probably my favorite songs. Then you got Edie. It's Firewoman's on this one. But yeah, I guess I do need to re-listen to this. It's been a couple years since I listened to Sonic Temple because I always gravitate to Ceremony, the album after this, to be quite frank. And that or either Electric. I certainly visit that a whole I love that album as well. I mean, yeah, Cult's a great band, but hair metal, I don't know. I don't know if I would put them on a hair metal list like this. All right. 20. We're in the top 20 here. Warrant Cherry Pie 1990. Yes, great album. People can make fun of Cherry Pie all they want, but it's a great album. Can't say nothing bad about it. You say what you will about the song. I still like the song. I think it's another one of those timeless ones. Where when it comes on, I just respect Janie so much, like as a songwriter, singer, and just what he meant to hair metal in general, and just the albums that he put out, especially the first three. Those albums that he put out, man, and wrote awesome stuff. Some of the best songwriting, top 10 songwriter for me of the hair metal genre. But no, as far as this song, or as far as this album, great stuff. You got great ballads on here. I Saw Red and Blind Faith, absolutely great ballads. You got also here, You're the Only Hell Your Mama Ever Raised, one of my favorites off this album. Love in Stereo is cool. Uncle Tom's Cabin, obviously a single. A different feeling song and somewhat heavy too. What you're starting to see Warren dabble in that heaviness that you will later see on Dog Eat Dog with Uncle Tom's Cabin. But yeah, I mean, this album won't make a top 50 for me, but I like this album a lot. I respect it. The more I grow older, I respect it more. Because yeah, back in the early days, I didn't care for this album. I was always a dirty, rotten, filthy, stinking rich guy, or eventually a dog eat dog guy. And this one was always kind of caught in the middle for me. But I mean, you can't go wrong with any of the first three albums from Warrant, obviously. And that's end of story there. So 19 Poison open up and say, I'm actually kind of surprised that this is not higher up because when I think I'm not saying that this album's like absolutely amazing or like a top five album, but to me, for your casual listener, if someone never really listens to hair metal before, this is like one of those albums that I would give to them and be like, hey, this kind of encompasses what hair metal sounds like and is about lyrically, guitar tone, guitar solos, riffage wise, just everything about the album. Production like gives you that 1988 feel, but still sounds modern. Because like I said, with the previous single, "Nothing But a Good Time," that's still one of those songs that are a timeless classic that you can listen to and today still put you in a good mood. Now, yes, I'm not going out of my way to play it to type it in the YouTube or the iPod and be like, "Oh, I gotta listen to nothing but a good time." No, but when it does come on the radio or whatever, it's cool. I'll listen to it. But but yeah, I mean, everyone knows every rose has its thorn. One of the biggest ballads of the genre, and just it is a good song. It is a good song. But I think this album really flops for me as far as I mean, I like every song except for Your Mama Don't Dance. I think that is a horrible cover that brings down the album for me. Still one of my favorite Poison albums, but I think if you would have put like Face the Hangman or like some one of those outtake demo songs from this album instead of the cover, it would have been so much stronger of an I think it would have been even praised more, especially in my eyes anyway. So but the deep cuts are very good on here too because you had Nothing But a Good Time, Fallen Angel, and Your Mama Don't Dance the cover as a single, and also Every Rose. And I just feel like you know the deeper cuts are where it's at on this album. So I there's certainly strength in the deeper cuts, but man, yeah, Love on the Rocks, really, really good stuff. Back to the Rocking Horse, good stuff. All right, here we go with Bon Jovi, New Jersey. Doesn't matter what Bon Jovi album you put up. I do not like Bon Jovi. I think he's one of the worst in the genre. Nothing I ever heard moved me. And I remember back in the day, like in 2005, 2006, I was reading up on sleaze rocks. I'm like a teenager here, and I'm like, oh man, this stuff is awesome. Like how can you not like hair metal, glam metal, sleaze metal, and shit like that, and just or any '80s metal to be just in general, thrash, power, whatever. And I'm reading the Sleaze Rocks article, and it's Bon Jovi saying like, or someone asking Bon Jovi, hey, it seems like hair metal is starting to come back and starting to be kind of cool again, having a little renaissance. Why don't you take any of your hair metal peers or like the bands that you were a part of as well that you helped during the '80s and stuff like that? And he was like, "What are you talking about? I was never a part of that hair metal scene, or like I was never lumped into those bands and that genre and stuff." And when I saw that and read that, I was like, "I am never going to support Bon Jovi ever again."
Your music's bad and you should feel bad.
He feels that way about our genre, about the hair metal genre, then I have no use for his music, no use for him. Just the music. I just not going to support it. So if you don't want to be thankful for where you came from and talk shit on it, then I have no, you know, money, no thought, no passion for you. Then, so there you go. So that's my Bon Jovi rant. Every time someone brings up Bon Jovi, I get on a little rant. So there you go. All right, number 17, Def Leppard Hysteria. This is actually surprising. Usually, I would say this goes on a lot of people's like top 10. Being ranked down here at 17 is actually kind of surprising. So I don't ever need to hear the singles again. Love Bites is one of the worst ballads there is in the genre. I don't know how the fuck that charted so high, how that even became a thing, a hit to begin with. I don't know. That is absolutely one of the worst ballads. If you want someone to be turned off by ballads, you play that. You play Love Bites. Horrible stuff. But Love and Affection is a great ballad off this album. Gods of War is cool. I can't do Rocket. Armageddon, it's catchy. Armageddon is catchy, but every time I listen, I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like, I can't really understand what you're trying to say. Here, or like what you're trying to portray to me. I don't understand what's going on here. I never, to be frank, I never read the lyrics. So like, but to me, even when I was a kid, because my aunt was a big Def Leppard fan, and whenever I was over at her place or like in the car with her, we would always be playing Def Leppard. Man, Def Leppard is like one of the hardest bands for me vocally to understand kind of like what he's saying. Like when I was a kid, I always thought he was saying something different than what he was actually saying. So that's a little thing that I always have with Def Leppard. I'm like, I just don't understand what he's saying in a lot of songs. I don't know if it's just like the Britishness to it, but he doesn't necessarily sound British while he's singing, so I don't know what the fuck's going on. So, but I mean, this album is not Hysteria is not going to be on my top 50. I rarely visit it. Like I said, there's a few deeper cut tracks on here that I do like, but I don't need to hear the singles, and that's half the album. So there we go. I just don't visit it. Uh, all right, we got Poison at 16. Look what the cat dragged in. Another one where I don't need to hear the singles again. I do like Cry Tough though. I do like the messaging in it. I do like what it's about. But yes, I like Talk Dirty to Me. I don't need to hear that ever again. I Won't Forget You is a pretty weak ballad in my opinion, especially compared to a lot of other Poison's ballads as well. It's certainly on the lower tier. But I think the strength of this album, Look What the Cat Dragged In, is the deep cuts, like the title track, Play Dirty, number one Bad Boy. I think that's where a lot of the strength is and why I would visit this album again. Now, the production is kind of cool too, because it does have a little bit of a rawness and edginess to it that you don't really get with the next couple albums. But to me, I don't visit this album that much, and if I do, it's only the deep tracks. And obviously, it is an iconic album cover, cool shit. But it, this album is kind of where I understand why people talk shit on Poison because it is very bubblegummy. I feel like they did get better as time goes on because like Native Tongue is one of my favorite Poison albums, and I think just their best overall. And you know, I get why people make fun of Poison, and it's strictly because of this album, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, but CC sounds good though. I mean, still doing quality work on the guitar and stuff like that. It's good, but it's not making my top 50. So there you go. All right, number 15, Out of the Cellar. Wow, this is another one I was expecting to be a little bit higher. Not that I would put it higher, but whenever I talk Out of the Cellar and Invasion of Your Privacy, I always go with Invasion because I feel like Invasion does everything better than Out of the Cellar. Out of the Cellar, I have it on vinyl, and I just don't visit it that much. Sure, yes, One in Man's good. Obviously Round and Round, but I don't need to hear that song again. Lack of Communication's good. There's good stuff on here, but I just think Invasion does everything better. People just praise this up because it was early. And I don't know. I think that's what people have more of a connection to this album. So, and that's the other thing too. Like when I talk about these albums, I love every single one of these albums that we're talking about. But when we're talking nerdy, when we're getting into the deep details, there's stuff that not everything can be great. The greatest of all time and stuff. Like not everything can be that. So, I have to try to put some gray area somewhere here. Try to get some black and white as well. Like try to know what we're looking at here instead of just trying to explain everything the same way. And I think that's where I'm at with Rat because I like their later stuff more so than their earlier stuff. So I don't know. I appreciate for what it did and what it is, but I don't visit Alice that much. All right. Number 14, here we go. Dog Eat Dog. I give props to, classic rock culture here, or whoever the writer is for this article, for having this on their top 15 because it is a great album, one of the best albums of 1992, other than Wild Side Under the Influence, and a couple others, obviously. But certainly, like I said, Dirty Rotten was my original love, my favorite Warrant album. And the last like 5 years plus or so, I would say Doggy Dog took the number one spot for me as far as Warrant albums are concerned. And it's just so great. Like there's fun, there's like a couple like upbeat fun songs, but there's also a serious tone to a lot of the other shit too. Like Machine Gun's a great single. Hole in My Wall, heavy. Bonfire, the Bitter Pill is a ballad, one of the singles off here. Really good, very mature album, very mature. Well, if you're expecting Cherry Pie or Dirty Rotten, you're not going to get that here. You're going to get more of a serious tone, more of a mature songwriting. Even though I would say Janie's songwriting is throughout the catalog is pretty mature. Even like the first two albums are not the maturest. Like you can tell they're still young, but it's done in a it's written in a more of a mature way. Like it's done professionally. But you all on here, you got April 2031. Good stuff. Andy Warhol was right. Oh God, I do really enjoy like Out as well. That's a good song. Let It Rain is a great ballad here as well. I cannot talk good enough about Dog Eat Dog. Please check that album out. Good stuff. All right, here's Hanoi Rocks, Bangkok Shocks from 1981. Like I said, with Michael Monroe. I am not familiar with Rocks or Michael Monroe just because I cannot get the physical stuff uh, in my world or in my matrix. So it's just a shame, but. One of these days, I will be able to find some Hanoi Rock stuff, and I will be able to bring that to you. All right, number 12, here we go. Cinderella, my favorite band, admittedly. Long Cold Winter, the second album, 1988. Great album. I mean, not a bad song on the whole thing at all. They hit a little bit different stuff throughout. You're starting to hear more of the bluesy side of Cinderella here before they go balls deep in Heartbreak Station. But I think it works 100% on this album. And I do actually prefer this album over Night Songs, which Night Songs is a great album as well. But man, you got the opening track, Bad Seamstress Blues. Great stuff there. Just a great album opener. Gypsy Road was a single. The Last Mile was a very underrated song, in my opinion. I absolutely love the guitar solo in that song. Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone is the ballad. One of the biggest ballads in the genre as well. Good, very good. Long Cold Winter, the title track. I love blues music, so that I mean, actually, to be honest, that might be one of the reasons why I do love blues music. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Cinderella, like those bands that I grew up in the womb, and when I was born, that these bands, Cinderella, Britney Fox, Stevie Ray, you know, they were always in the family car. So that is, I think, why I really enjoy the blues side of like sleaze metal and hair metal and stuff like that. So, but yeah, Long Cold Winter should be higher in my opinion. All right. Number 11 here, we got Dr. Feelgood. Now, this isn't going to make a top 50 for me, but I get why people put this in the top 50 or top 30 for them. Uh, I do really love Don't Go Away Mad, one of my favorite Motley Crue songs in general. But that Without You is a horrible ballad. Time Time for Change is another ballad off here that I liked it at first, but as time is going on, I think it's getting weaker and weaker. Motley Crue was not known for their balladry in the original run anyway. Anything 1994 and after ballad wise, I think they did better than their original run. There's not really anything I really care for ballad wise from their original run. I don't. I think I don't know. I don't even know if I could be debated into agreeing with a good song, a top tier song ballad from Motley Crue. from the 80s. So, but obviously you got the title track, great riff, heavy, but I think the deep cuts are where it's at for me here. Sticky Sweet, Rattlesnake Shake, Slice of Your Pie. I do dig those songs. So like that is why I would visit this album more. That I just don't like totally shut it off like Hysteria and stuff like that. But to me, I don't need to hear like Same Old Situation and Kickstart My Heart ever again because that shit gets played on the radio so much. And like the other deep track, She Goes Down, pretty good. I mean, you can say what you want, and now some people don't like the deep tracks, but I mean, I'd rather listen to deep tracks on there than the singles at this point. So there you go. All right, here we go. 10, Warrant, Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinker Rich from '89. Warrant's debut album. And you had here 32 Pennies, Down Boys, Big Talk, two singles. Big Talk's really good. I always enjoyed it. I mean, there's not really a bad song on here, but I don't need to hear Heaven ever again. That's one of the ballads that's like, it's good, but I'm not going to my iPod and being like, I gotta listen to Heaven. Sometimes She Cries. I listen to that for the guitar work mainly anymore, but that's a great song though too. Ah man, Riding High on that album's good. In the Sticks is really good. Deep tracks are solid on this album as well, and the album cover's badass. So, all right, we're moving on here. Number 9, Whitesnake, self-titled. Now, this is an album that I don't visit that much. I visit. I usually either visit Whitesnake before this album or Whitesnake after this album. This album I just don't really listen to much. I don't know if it's just because like In the Still of the Night, Here I Go Again, and like Is This Love. I just don't need to hear those three songs, and I just don't really remember much from the rest of the album, if that makes sense. I usually visit Slip of the Tongue, the album after this with Steve Vai, more than this album. But I will say, Here I Go Again was like a second edition. Like this is the modern version, if you will, compared to because on Saints and Sinners, I believe from like the very early '80s when Whitesnake was like a blues style band, blues rock band. Uh, that was the original. The original was like very bluesy, and I like that. I like the original as well. I think they both have their uh, perks and spots and stuff like that, but I think I do prefer the original, to be honest with you. All right. Interesting here. Extreme. The second album, Porno Graffiti. Now, or pornography. I don't know where you want to say. Now, I will say though, this is the album that I visit from Extreme the most. Three Sides to Every Story is okay, but there's a lot of moving pieces on that, a lot of different styles at play there. And then the debut is good, but nothing special, I would say. Just another, like, just a run of the mill. It's good, but it's just nothing really that standoutish to me. Now, this, I think, Extreme 2 is good. It deserves to be on a top 50 uh, hair metal albums list. But Get the Funk Out was a single. More Than Words, I don't really need to hear that song ever again. You got Wholehearted on here as well as another ballad. Song for Love's decent as a ballad. What's the one where it's really? I think it's When I First Saw You. It's like Gary just singing in a jazz style song or an acoustic style. I forget what the song is, but it's really good. But you also got some fast stuff on here. It's a Monster, Little Jack Horny, When I'm President's a fun song. You know, I like this album. I do like this album a lot. I because every time whenever everyone talks about Extreme, they always talk about like one or two songs. I never hear anyone really talk about an album of Extreme. It's weird, like because to be honest, I heard people talk about the debut just as much as I hear people talk about number two, as much as I hear about Three Sides to Every Story. So like, there's not really one or the other that really gets like overly talked about, if you will. But I do prefer I think Extreme Two out of all of them. So all right, here's another one. David Lee Roth, number 7. That's crazy that this is number 7 because to me, I never got into David Lee Roth as a solo artist. Every single I heard of his just kind of annoyed the hell out of me, and I'm like, I'm not buying the rest of this album. You know, like if I want to listen to David Lee Roth, I'm gonna be listening to Van Halen, David Lee Roth. You know, and there's just nothing I ever really gravitated to from his '80s work. So I totally disagree with this being on the list. I don't know. I just maybe I just have to revisit these again, you know. And I was just like, I just it's hard to get through the singles. So like I don't really want to invest a whole lot of time in the albums then. So maybe I'm wrong. Let me know, guys, if you guys think I'm wrong on that, but or where I should start as an album for David Lee Roth. Maybe just Eat 'Em a Smile ain't it for me. So there you go. All right, let's see. Def Leppard number 6, Pyromania. I get why this album's on here, but is it hair metal? I don't know. Hysteria is the hair metal, or Adrenalize is the hair metal album. This is still new wave of British heavy metal. You know, I don't see. It's still new wave of British heavy metal mixed with more of a mainstream feel, and that wasn't really hair metal at the time. That wasn't hair metal at the time in '83. So I don't know why this is on a list, a hair metal list. Uh, but it is a good album. I don't ever need to hear the singles again. Photograph, uh, what's the other one? Rock of Ages. I don't ever need to hear that again. God, yeah. But I will say, and like Foolin', I don't really care for either. It's okay. I can I prefer that over like Rocket from Hysteria, but I do really enjoy the Too Late for Love. I love that. I consider it a ballad, but if you don't, that's cool too. But I like that song. And that's probably my favorite one off this album. Uh, Don't Shoot Shotgun, I think, is on this one as well. It's like I said, it's a good album, but it's not a hair metal album in my opinion. And Bon Jovi, I don't want to go on another Bon Jovi rant, so that you can get this one the hell out of here.
Look like garbage.
All right, and this one, okay, what's going on with this here? Aerosmith, Pump. Aerosmith countlessly said numerous times that they did not like the hair metal scene. They did not like what was going on. Obviously with "Dude Looks Like a Lady," that song, and even on "Decline of Western Civilization," they were saying, "Oh, all these bands are like taking our look and stuff like that." And like I'm like, what? Like I don't know. I just Aerosmith was not to me. They just jumped on the bandwagon of what was cool at the time. Sure, yes, they influenced it, and to me, they're just a '70s band. To me, an early '80s band. For me, I stopped with Aerosmith after the Mirrors album, Done with Mirrors, and I mean, and before that, like I don't even visit Aerosmith much anymore. Like I haven't listened to one of their albums, for years, and it's just like I don't I you hear the stuff on the radio all the time, and it's just like yes, their albums are good. Like I said, Done with Mirrors, uh, you know, One Night in the Ruts, shit like those albums are decent. Like A Night in the Ruts, it's it's good, but is it the best thing I ever heard? Absolutely not. And you know, and Pump, whatever. I don't not not a top 50 album for me. All right, Molly Crew, Shout at the Devil, 1983. I get why this is on. 10 Seconds of Love is an absolutely amazing song. One of my favorite Motley Crue songs of all time. God, that riffage, Mick Mars just amazing on this album. I think they kind of fucked up though on this album. Like just looking back, it's just with having Bastard and Red Hot on. You could take one of those songs off and put on Louder Than Hell because obviously that was written during the studio time that eventually got put on the Theater of Pain. I think it was like Hotter Than Hell originally, and then obviously they changed it to Louder Than Hell. But that would have worked perfect, Hotter Than Hell, on this album. Would have fit the atmosphere 100%, and that's a great riff and great song. And I think if you could have took one of those songs off, Bastard, Red Hot, and would have been okay for that song, and it would have been an even better album, in my opinion. Looks That Kill and Too Young to Fall in Love, yes, they're good singles, but like, I'll just say in general, like the title track's great. I still blast that mother. It's a great song, but in general, though, I will say Helter Skelter's not a. I I don't care for that cover. Yes, I would listen to Motley Crue's version over the Beatles because I'm not the biggest Beatles guy either. So I would certainly take Motley Crue's version. But that to me is a weak track. Take that off and put Louder Than Hell on. How about that? We'll do that. Take Helter Skelter off and you know have all original tracks. Then that would be so much stronger, in my opinion. So, but to me, Motley Crue, as time moves on, man, I think to me their catalog is just getting weaker and weaker. And that's why I think I gravitate towards '94 with John Corabi so much more than a lot of their other stuff, even their classic stuff. So, but we talk about that a lot here on the channel. So I don't want to bore you too much here on this video with it. All right, so number two, we got Skid Row with their debut, 1989. I listen to Slave to the Grind more. Uh, Not that this album's bad. It's good album. It's a great debut album. But I don't need to hear I Remember You again. I don't need to hear 18 in Life. Youth Gone Wild's a very good song and still fresh today. Uh, Big Guns is a good one. Can't Stand the Heartache is one of my favorites on the album. Very melodic. Like the first three songs on that album are really, really good. Midnight Tornado is a good finisher for the album. Good stuff. But I is it better than a lot of the other albums that were out in '89? Uh, you're gonna have to do some persuading for me on that because I don't really visit this album that much, to be completely honest with you. Like I said, if I'm talking Skid Row, I'm going to Slave to the Grind more times than not. But just in general, like I don't visit this album that much. But it's good though. I like I said, guys, I love all these albums, but I am just telling you where they rank in my tier, how much I listen to them. So because like when you have over like 1,000 albums, you know, literally probably from the '80s itself and early '90s, like I can't listen to music 24 hours a day. I mean, I listen to a lot at work and wherever I'm at, but like you can't listen to everything. There has to be tiers. There has to be stuff that you absolutely love and will listen to anytime instead of stuff that is good and great, but it's like, oh god, I heard this way too much or whatever, or it's just not up to par with some other stuff that was just unknown or forgotten throughout the years. So, all right, number one, here we go. Motley Crue again. Not my favorite Motley Crue album. Yes, I said it. Not my favorite Motley Crue album. Too Fast for Love. Yes, it is. It is the building blocks to what we are going to be. You could argue this is the start of hair metal. This album started hair metal, uh, but it does have punkiness to it. It does. It is straightforward. Livewire is a great song. Too Fast for Love is a good song. I mean, there are good songs on here. On with the Show, kind of a ballad. I can dig it, but like Starry Eyes, I never liked that song. That was a weak ass song from the start. Toast to the Town's not technically on that album, but it is on the reissue. Because I had the reissue, so I always put that song in with this album because I do dig that song. Uh, you know, Piece of Your Action I like. Public Enemy number one, good. I love the cowbell in that, but it it's weak. It's not a number one album. Yes, it was important to the hair metal genre. You know, it was important in 1981. But if we're comparing stuff for the next 10, 14 years to 1994 in this genre, you cannot tell me that this album you would take over a lot of other albums. I don't know. So, but then again, it all comes down to subjectability. When a lot of people have a connection to this album, I have a connection because I remember when I first heard it, I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I liked it. Say what shout out the devil. But as time goes on, man, I'm finding way more better stuff throughout the '80s and early '90s, and that just don't get talked about. And it's just like, and people just want to beat this dead horse to death here, this Too Fast for Love to death, like, or whatever the album, Hysteria to death, and it's just, man, I don't know. So, yes, if you guys cannot tell, my top 50 will be totally different. And another criteria to my top 50 is only one band or one album per band. So, yeah, I'm not going to have two Cinderella albums. I'm not going to have two Britney Fox albums, Poison, whatever, go on. Only one album per band. So I think that makes it a little bit more fun, gives it a little bit more variety, not the same stuff all the time. So Yes, that is, VCR here. Top what 30, top 30 albums. So let me know, guys. Do you guys agree with this list for the most part? Do you not agree with this list? For me, a lot of these albums will not make my top 50. So, but I appreciate that. I mean, all the albums are good. All the albums are good. I can't talk about much about except the Bon Jovi one. So yeah, that stuff will never be a part of the collection. But everything else is a part of the collection, except for, like I said, the Hanoi Rocks. I just can never find it. But everything else is a part of the collection of mine. So I own like most of this list. It's not that I hate the stuff, but when you're doing a top 30, top 50 list and stuff, you do have to make hard choices, and that's what I had to do, and that's where I'm at with those albums. So guys, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys like me doing these reaction videos and stuff to these like top 50 list or whatever? And let me know, guys.
Talk to me.
Click the like button. Click the subscribe button if you like what we're doing here. We want to build this metal community. That's what I feel like is missing in the metal community, basically, is the gathering and just being able to talk and being able to share this this forgotten and unknown stuff as well from the past, present, and future, and just definitely the goal of the channel here. So I want to thank you guys for watching the Crash Course Metal Show. Until next time, stay out of that collateral damage. And if you guys enjoyed this video, check out this one right here.
Yeah, I wrote that. It's called I Want to Rock Your Body. And then in parentheses it says to the break of dawn.